Diogenes was like no other philosopher of his time. Unlike Plato or Aristotle, instead of living in a fancy house, teaching at a fancy school, and teaching 2 fancy students, he lived in an overturned barrel in the town square with no clothes and merely a bowl in his possession, shouting at passerby about random musings that he thought of that were later written down and recorded for centuries after. Diogenes thought outside of the box, or rather the barrel in this case, and instead of being uptight and prissy like his contemporaries, he instead decided to be himself and to break the mold of philosophers. An example of this is when the other philosophers, in this example Plato and Aristotle again, were trying to figure out the simplest way to define what a human is. Aristotle said a featherless biped. Diogenes plucked all the feathers off of a chicken and brought it to Aristotle's school saying, here's your featherless biped. So Diogenes thought outside of the box and broke the mold. And that is echoed in today's quotation. It's not what you do, but how you do it. And this means that in life, we have to be successful by breaking the mold and thinking outside of the box and getting outside of our comfort zones. We can't become complacent. We need to become more. And we'll see this first through the musician Hassel Adkins and how he revolutionized the world of music. Second, through Volvo and how they revolutionized the car world. And third, through Hank Hill and how he revolutionized his job at Strickland Propane. Hassel Adkins is what I would like to call one of the greatest musicians you've never heard of, and for good reason. He was born in Boone County, Georgia during the tail end of the Great Depression, and Boone County, Georgia, which I'm guessing you've never heard of, was an incredibly poor, small town. Unlike his idol Elvis, he had no blue suede shoes until he was 5 years old, and he only went to school for 3 days of the first grade. However, he had one passion in life, and it was music. Well, he couldn't afford the best guitar, or the best microphones, or frankly, the best of anything. He had his own ideas. And these ideas were primarily girls, chicken, and decapitation. Well, he wasn't necessarily the model rock star. He was making the music that he wanted to make, and this proved to be incredibly successful for him. For example, in his song, She Said, about a one-night stand gone wrong in the morning, he tells this tale, and it was later covered by the Cramps, one of the most popular bands of the psychobilly genre, which he created. And in his song No More Hot Dogs, which exemplifies his odd sense of humor, he tells a tale about taking her on a date, cutting off her head so she can eat, as the song title suggests, no more hot dogs. Hassel Adkins cared about nothing else but creating the music that he wanted to create for an audience that wasn't necessarily there for him. However, he recorded his songs, and they later became extremely popular in the 80s and 90s, being covered, like I said, by the Cramps and a variety of other bands. Hassel Adkins broke the mold, and for that he became successful. Now, from decapitation to car crashes. The 1970s were not the safest time to be in a car. From metal dashboards you could crack your head open on, no airbags anywhere in the vehicle, or even awesome chain steering wheels that would break your fingers in the event of a crash. It wasn't a safe time to be a passenger in an automobile. Take, for example, Ford and how their Pinto had an issue with junk in the trunk. Junk in the trunk in this case being an exploding gas tank when you got rear ended. But Volvo was unlike these other automakers. They prioritized safety. And this is exemplified in the Volvo 240. Aptly nicknamed the Brick, like another brick that we know, it was slow and not all that attractive, but it was safe. It had crumple zones, airbags, and even in some experimental models, a backup camera. And this was in 1975, before most people even owned a camera. So Volvo thought outside of the box and prioritized safety instead of prioritizing things like an awesome engine or an awesome paint job. So they broke out of the mold of the other automakers, and this is what made them successful in the Volvo 240 being one of the most long manufactured cars from 1975 to 1992, which is an incredibly long run. They broke the mold, and that's what made them successful. Now, from selling cars to selling propane, king of the hill, and their main character, Hank Hill. He sells this, he says, propane accessories, in a small town of Arlen, Texas. And he is happy in his life. He has his wife Peggy, his son Bobby, and his friends, who he sits by a fence and drinks beer with every single day. Instead of merely accepting this life, however, when his young coworker decides to make him the model in a game called Pro Pain, pain being spelled P-A-I-N, because, of course, it is. It's an awesome game. Instead of just merely rejecting this offer, since he doesn't quite know what a computer is, he doesn't quite know what a video game is, and he definitely doesn't know how to be a model for one, he decides to instead take this offer and become the model for the main character. And this turns him into somewhat of a local celebrity after the game is extremely successful. Instead of just letting this, instead of just staying in this box, he broke out of it and did something that he never thought he'd do before. And by becoming the character, he was successful. So today we've talked about the quotation, it's not what you do, but how you do it. And this means that to really be successful in life, you have to break out of the mold and you have to do stuff that you never thought you would before. And we first saw this through Hassel Atkins and how he revolutionized music. Second, through the Volvo, and more importantly, the Volvo 240. And third, through Hank Hill. So from this quotation, we can learn that if we truly want to be successful in life, we can't just stay with the same old. We have to continue to grow and evolve and change and try new things.